Yreka City Council, all please rise. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If everybody could please silence their cell phones so we don't get a bunch of interruptions during it. Thank you. All right. So is that what we discussed then? We want to move it to the end or?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay. So on the agenda, we have two items. Obviously, the main one that everybody's here for is the homeless encampments and stuff. We have another discussion item that we're going to move to the second part of this, so you guys don't have to stick around for any of our boring stuff. So we'll get on to that. All righty. Like to meetings have been placed on the agenda to allow the council and staff and the public to participate via teleconference and telephone, Zoom, and all that stuff. If you're on telephone, just dial start or press *9 to raise your hand. And please, speakers identify themselves. This is time for public comments. Council may ask questions, but may take no action during the public comment section of this meeting, except to refer staff that they prepare a report or place on future agenda. I'll spit it out here eventually. If you are here to make comments on the specific agenda item, you may speak at this time. If not, this is a time. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. So this is just for regular public comments, not the homeless thing. We're going to talk about that in just 2 minutes. So is there any other public comments other than the homeless issue that we're going to be talking about? Okay, well, then we'll move on then. Let's start off right off the bat with we're going to talk about further sites on the homelessness encampments. We had last meeting, we discussed a couple different places. One being the front part of the city yard, and the other part was over by Deer Creek area, which is the greenway, part of the greenway, flood reduction area. So those were the two places we discussed. Afterwards, after the discussion, we had some discussion with legal on a few things on the city yard. And right now, as of now, we cannot put it in the city yard because of legal aspects on that. So unfortunately, even though that seemed like the most appropriate spot at the time, unfortunately, legally as a city, we have to go through some legal things. And so that's off the table for right now. But one of the things we would like to discuss before we get into the big discussion of the Deer Creek area one, well, first and foremost, I need to roll back a little bit here on why we're needing to do this. One of the couple reasons why we're needing to get a location for the homeless to be is by the Ninth Circuit Court. There's a ruling the final ruling back in December that said, as a city, unless we have a place for the homeless to go, we cannot move them, we cannot cite them, we cannot do anything. So we as a city, this is one of those unfunded burdens that the state and the federal government has put on us, that we have to have a place for the homeless to go. So this is why we're at this point and making this decision, because we obviously have a homeless problem in Yreka, which everybody's aware of that, and that's why we're here. Right now, there's a couple of locations that we have them, some of the homeless are camping out at by COS, up there by COS, and this happens to be a real high fire danger area. And so we're trying to do some fuel reduction projects up there. We did one, we took the cat and blazed a couple trails to make it a little safer, but we actually need to get up in there and do further fuel reduction and reduce some of the brush and some of the other stuff around there to make it safe for all of us. The other place, the big place that they've been hanging out, homeless have been hanging out, is right below Greenhorn Dam, which a lot of you that walk the Greenhorn area have seen all the tents and all the motor homes, and even there was a boat the other day, which is fantastic. And so this is the other place that we have to open up. Right now, that area where they have to cross to go get in and out of that area is owned by Pacific Power. And Pacific Power here in a few more weeks is going to be fencing and gating that area off. So we have to, at that point, be able to supply an area for the homeless to go. And that's why we're at this decision making that we are right now. We're trying to figure out where that best location is. So like I said, one of the areas was discussed was Deer Creek. We've just got some other information this last couple of weeks on another location that might be better suited to help mitigate the problem of residential area over by Deer Creek, because we've talked about this, and we want, obviously, first and foremost, to keep our citizens safe, keep them out of any harm's way, and by having it over at Deer Creek, there's really one way in, one way out. So we've researched that and looked at going, that's not the safest place to have something going on there. So with that in mind, we have looked at another area, which is not going to be ideal, but we got to keep in mind, this is just going to be a temporary situation until we can get our urban campsite up and going, which is over there by the Beacon of Hope at the bottom of Foothill. Then that'll help us on a lot of different avenues with that location, because we'll be able to work in conjunction to the Beacon of Hope on their homeless shelter and try to hope get some of these citizens, some of these transients and homeless people on the right track, get them going to some valuable resources, hook them up with some valuable resources, hopefully to get them on a fast track to be productive citizens. So in any case, we have another area that we're looking at this point in time is, unfortunately, is another part of the Greenway, which has not been used very much, unfortunately, because of all the activity that's going on over there anyways. So this is the Greenway off of Oberlin Road, which tucks back over towards the creek and over in that area. Now, Arthur, do you have that up already where we can look at it yet, or? There we go. Oops.
And he does have one caller with their hand up.
What's that?
He does have one caller with their hand up for future
Oh, okay.
reference.
So these areas, if you go back towards, just stand up, it's like the easiest. So these areas here, you can scroll up this way so you can get an idea of where we're at. Arthur. There we are, a little bit further, a little further. Okay, so here is the parking lot off of Oberlin Road going to the Greenway. Now go ahead and scroll back down. We already have existing camps in these locations. What we're proposing is where this green outlined area is to be able to have the encampments there. Where we have the yellow squares, that would be where the porta potties were going to be put in place. We're going to have trash services there on a regular basis to where they can drop off trash. And Will has been very proactive in that, and I thank you for that. Our code enforcement officer, Willow. She's awesome. She's been communicating with the homeless on a daily basis. She goes out and about to all these encampments and gives them trash bags, and they put their trash in it, and most of them are pretty good about it. Obviously not perfect, but it's been at least it's working in some shape or form. That they're actually putting their trash in there. They're getting it out of parks and out of some of the areas. So it's a complicated deal, but at least it's working. You know, we thought about doing dumpsters in some of these areas, but the problem with doing these dumpsters, a couple things, it's going to get abused by other people. So every person running around town is going to grab their trash and throw it in the dumpster. So we're trying.
Tell them that.
Well, that's why we're doing that. So by doing a trash pickup like she's doing, it'll kind of eliminates that problem of everybody using the dumpsters, and it's just down for the homeless and stuff. So this is kind of the proposed areas that we're looking at. And like I said, I want to reiterate, this is a temporary thing. We're only doing this right now to get through the summer months. Where these locations are, it's going to be away from the hill where the main fire hazard is. It's going to be 100 feet away from the creek system, so they're not going to be contaminating the creek. And we're going to be patrolling this. The law enforcement actually can drive all the way through that whole area, believe it or not. I know it looks like it's just a walkway, But as Mark can tell you, that YPD actually goes out there on a daily basis right now and cruises around on that Deer Creek area, or excuse me, on the Greenway area off of Oberlin Road anyway. So it's something that's really accessible. And once, if this does transpire, this will be something that will be even more than a just once a day type thing, that YPD will be going through there on a regular basis. And obviously code enforcement will be going through there on a regular basis too, to make sure it's kept safe, make sure that these camps are where they're supposed to be, and hold them accountable for this. Keep them out of the creek, keep them out of there, making sure that they're not doing illegal activity as much as we can. That's the whole goal on it. Like I said, this is a temporary fix just to try to get things up and running, to get some safety in our community. Like I said, all these areas a lot of these areas that they're camping out at right now are high fire danger areas. And that's what our main goal is right now, is to get them out of the high fire danger areas and get them into a safe place that we can monitor and make sure that they're not doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing for the most part. I mean, we can say that, but it's obviously there's no way we're going to patrol it 24/7, but that's where our goal is on that. With that in mind, I would like to first open it up to council, because some of the council just got this information too. So I'd like to open it up to council first, and then I want to open it up to the public for comments and stuff like that. So council,
I do have one bit of information to add. Part of what the issue is the location has to be close to the services. So the city does own other property out on Philippi Lane. However, if we were to establish the campsite out there, we would have to provide special transportation for them. So we are certainly open to better ideas.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
anybody has some, we would love to hear it, but we have to stick to the legal guidelines that are presented to us. And like Dwayne has said, hopefully to protect our citizens. So keep these sites as far away from residential areas, commercial areas, so we can continue to do business, that kind of thing, without any interference or panhandling. That nature is what I'm referring to. But we are open to suggestions.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Gentlemen, Corey, do you have any comments at this point?
So just to touch on a couple of things is, for those of you that weren't at the last couple of meetings, is our foothill property is contaminated. And so it's going to take 2 or 3 months to clear the contamination up off that property. So that's why we're having the delay of getting the homeless camp put in that location, as we do have to have the ground clear. And it's going to be 3 months, 4 months away.
Well, we still haven't got things.
We'll say
I don't
6
think you-
months.
Have you heard anything recently?
I don't
know
have
Paul
enough.
did.
I don't have an update on the timeline.
Okay.
It's going to be a few months. So that's the reason we're having to do a temporary location until the Foothill property is ready and clear of the contamination. It was part of the wrecking yard on Foothill Road, our drive, and so it was contaminated for years by oil, gas, whatever. And so
Yeah.
it's being cleaned up. And frankly, we're at the end of our road with options. We have gone through every property the city owns, and we've hit roadblocks in almost every single one, whether it be close to the residential area, whether it's city yard. We ran into a roadblock on that location. And the other properties that the city owns they're too far out, as Debbie was saying, Councilman Baird, they're too far out. So we're down to about 2 options, 3 options. We either leave them on Campus Drive,
Well,
which,
that is an option.
I mean, and some people don't want it there. Some
Well,
people
like
are
I said,
gonna,
temporarily.
Temporary.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, reiterate that too. We need to clear Campus
Right.
Drive first.
Right.
So even though you may say we can bring that, it's an option right now, it's actually not an option, because we got to clear them out first. They have to go someplace first.
right,
So
but
they
So-
might filter back into
they
that
could,
area.
yeah. So I would say we're down to the last 2 properties. That may be one of them they go back to, maybe not, maybe they stay over here. We just don't know. But I do want to see them out of the park for sure.
Out of the park.
But frankly, we are down to the last couple of city-owned properties.
And the hard part, like getting back to Campus Drive, is I don't want to set precedents that we don't care about our COS either. So that's
Oh, no.
why I'm totally against that one myself, because right next to COS is not where I would send my kid to go with knowing that that's.
But I have heard from a majority of citizens that why aren't we just gonna leave them there instead of putting them by a residential area or putting them by other businesses? Why don't we just leave them there where it's off, out of sight from I-5 and away from it? So I've heard probably about 14 citizens who have reached out to me via text or email asking, why don't we just clear it and leave them in that location? So that's just
That's
what
an
I'm,
option too.
that's just what I'm
No,
hearing. That's just what I'm
option.
hearing. That's what
I
I'm
don't
hearing.
like it because like I said, it
Right.
doesn't show very good faith on our part towards the COS. So,
No, didn't you mean over by Oberlin, or did you mean
no, he's talking.
I was saying,
by
We're
the
down.
campus?
yeah, we're down to the last, either
Oh.
Oberlin or Campus Drive is where we're down to.
Okay. I have
Yes,
some
Joe.
input. Okay. So I agree with you. This is a very frustrating issue. We have looked and we've tried and nothing's worked out so far. And when I was mayor was when we, when we cut the ribbon on the Greenway. I hate to think that we spent all that money and did so much good work down there. The Siskiyou Gardens Parks and Greenway Group are here, and you guys have worked so hard on that. However, I have got a call. I've been getting a lot of phone calls too. I got a call from a member, one of the trustees of the board for College of the Siskiyous. And she is very upset and is concerned about students being up there and having the homeless so close for fear of things that could happen up there. So I'm thinking that the college campus is not a good spot or close to the college campus. And I hate to say it, but I think that we're down to that location. And I believe that the mayor's been talking with,
Yes.
Blaine, you've been talking to Gardens Parks and Greenway,
Yeah.
and Sam sent
Yeah.
us
Sam.
a nice
Yeah.
letter today saying that it's actually a recommendation for a temporary spot, and we do appreciate
Yeah.
you
We
reaching
really
out
appreciate
to
you.
us and offering a potential solution. However, having said that, that doesn't mean I like that spot.
No.
I do like that spot, but I like that spot for our citizens. But having said that, I would really like to see a field trip. I think that if we've got some really important stuff to do on the ground, it's important for all of us to go on the ground and see it and look at the locations, for where the camps will be and where the porta potties will be, and then go from there. I think it's really important. I know that you've been out there, you've seen it. I have not.
Yeah.
Corey, I don't believe you have. I have no idea about Polly hasn't been
No.
there for the
Well,
last.
he
two
kind of
meetings.
did, just for the fact, I didn't take him out there because I only took one councilman with me. Because don't want to violate the Brown Act. So,
Right. So I support you in all your hard work, and I have to say thank you for all the work that you've done, Dwayne. I know that you've been consumed with this, and all of us have heard from most of you and the audience. We've gotten our phone calls and we are listening. I know
Yes.
that there are people in the community that think that we're not listening or that we don't care, and that's absolutely not true. We do care, and we are trying to come up with a solution that people can live with. Now, this solution will be temporary,
Yep.
as you say, because we'd have to get those camps out of there by winter. Correct.
Correct.
So we would have to work on the Fairlane property between now and then.
Foothill.
Foothill.
Foothill. Yeah, not Fairlane. Don't put them at the fairgrounds. Cliff won't like that.
So with that, I don't know, Willow, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I am, but I don't know if there's anything, because, we had obviously a long discussion about this. I don't know if there's anything that you would like to talk about, discuss. If you come on up. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's a hand raise too, by the way.
That was good. I would have felt.
Yeah, I haven't opened up to the public yet. though.
So as if you haven't known, I am the code enforcement officer for the city of Yreka. I am, like Dwayne said, I'm in and out of these camps literally daily. I make contact with these individuals on a regular basis. They know me by name. They actually all walk to my truck when I come out to the camps. Majority of them are minding their P's and Q's when I'm out there. Not to say that I don't have my head on a swivel when I'm there as well. In regards to, Arthur, if you wouldn't mind throwing up that map real quick for me, if you don't mind. In going through the greenway, as Dwayne had said, there's 5 access points of entry and exit for this location. Every single one of them are drivable by one of our patrol units. Unfortunately, my truck doesn't fit over the bridges, but all the patrol units do. So I personally have 3 entry and exit points, but the patrols have 5. So you have your Overland Road. As you can see here, you have, sorry for those who are behind me. So you have this railroad access point over here, which is also drivable. They removed the boulders so you can drive there. You have this entry point from underneath the bridge because you can drive across those floating bridges over there. You have from the propane tanks coming down. The only modification that I would say in this map, so I don't know if you guys know where the picnic table is out there. I would strongly urge that that is your northmost point for any camps. And simply because fire danger and the potential for, if for heaven's sake, there happens to be an emergency, that would create a tunnel for any kind of potential clogged access and or wind tunnel for a fire. So I would say completely stop all. So I want to say the parking or that picnic bench is right around this other existing camp, the very topmost existing camp. I would say no more camps north of that point. Everything from there north is going to be fire break and or literally staging area and or emergency whatever, but nothing further from that picnic bench north. I would not suggest it in any way, shape, or form. I think it's very important to know, I still am in these camps specifically. I actually know who is in those camps by name. Again, I have a working relationship with them where they are signing forms stating they're not going to be destroying things, they're going to be cleaning up after them. They know that the trash bags that they get are for trash and trash alone. None of their personal belongings belong in these trash bags. And Public Works has rocked, absolutely rocked at helping maintain what program we have going for ensuring that that trash is not sitting there. Like, they have done so amazing. And with the cleanups, those guys are in there with me, working their tails off to ensure that every bit of what is there is picked up and that nothing is left behind. These guys have been busting their behinds just as much as I have. And I'm in there with those cleanups until they are finished as well. So it's not just Public Works going out on their own. I am there from start to finish in regards to all these cleanups. And so I can't say enough for Public Works. These guys are phenomenal. But as far as like a location, this is gonna, I understand that it's next to the freeway, and like the mayor has said, there's no good spot, unfortunately. However, temporarily, this is the best spot because it's patrollable. It has the ability to house, because you're looking at probably in totality between 3 to 5 acres. I really haven't mapped it out, but you're looking at one of the larger areas that we have that is close to the services. And as Mayor was saying, and as Councilman Baird was saying, that they can simply say it's an undue burden for me. And that's all they have to say, and we can't force them to go anywhere. So I know that there's a lot involved in the Martin V. Boyce decision, and that's the decision that came out finalized actually in 2018. I think there was some finalization of minor details this last December, but so many things unfortunately tied my hands, police's hands, first responders' hands from being able to do anything in regards to quote unquote moving them from public property. As Mayor said, private property is not the issue, it's public property that's the issue. And I understand your parks in the town are like your pride of joy and where you want to go to recreate. I fully understand that, and I appreciate that so much, which is why I've done what I can to mitigate and keep them where they are, and mitigate and work with them and try and ensure that those areas are gonna stay safe and clean. I know that the unknown is kind of fearful, but being in with them daily, I can tell you they're not there to try and harm you. I can tell you that they want to be left alone just as much as you don't want to be bothered by them. And so like with that, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to anyway, offer your graces as well. I mean, I know that's probably a big leap for you guys because it's the unknown, but offer your graces as well. Because it's the unknown for me going into it as well. It's the unknown of, I don't know who I'm gonna encounter in these places, but I'm going in trying to have a solution to a problem that we all are facing. So I can't say enough that this is gonna be the best spot that we have. I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing as much as I possibly can as far as the enforcement, as far as ensuring that we have a safety and ensuring and working with Chief Gilman to make sure that he knows the ins and outs and making sure that patrol officers know the ins and outs like I do with who it is that's in each one of these camps. You know, what their regular like timeframes of when they're actually at their camps, because that's what I've even come privy to, knowing when they're there, to be able to contact them. I actually have forms that they initial and sign and agree to, that I'm not gonna destroy it. And I'm, yeah, Mayor has one. They're not gonna destroy it, they're not going to, you know, litter, camp, just masticate the trees, that they're all agreeing to being in these spaces. And so I've done everything I can to mitigate our side to ensure that they're not destroying your guys' recreation space. And so I'm gonna continue to do that. I'm gonna make some modifications because now instead of B&L substation, it's gonna be whatever we decide.
Yep.
But I will get every single one of them to sign one. Anybody new and they work with me, they say, yeah, I know that camp's new, no, this person's left. And so I know who's going in and out of there. So I'm gonna make sure that they all sign them. I'm gonna ensure that they understand what the rules are. I'm gonna ensure as much as I can that that space is not a permanent space. And do what we can to make sure that that we're still abiding by what we need to abide by.
And that's why we want, this location, we're gonna have porta potties and everything we need to make sure that they're not doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and keeping that area clean. That's for future, obviously, we need to keep that, and that's what we're trying to keep that going in that direction, because by winter time, we need to have that cleaned back out. And that's what we're working with the Siskiyou Gardens and Parks and Greenway, and it's awesome that they've shared their time with us and walked that area and gave their input on this. This is all them, and I really appreciate them being involved and giving their input. Is it the proper, the perfect place? No, all of us will agree with that. Sam, we had a good conversation about that, but this will also give us an opportunity down the road once we get our permanent location where it's accessible and then where they can use it. This will give us an opportunity to actually clean up the place out there on Oberlin Road, the Greenway project. And it'll give them, the Siskiyou Gardens and Park Greenway, give them an opportunity to do some new projects there and do some better things for the Greenway, and hopefully in the future be able to keep that Greenway to where the citizens can actually enjoy it like we built it for. It's a valuable asset to the city, and it's frustrating when nobody feels like they can utilize this area. I mean, it's like Joan was saying, when we dedicated that thing, it was such a gorgeous place, and it still is a gorgeous place, but it's just, it's just not a place that the citizens want to go to. And that's who's paying for it, is the citizens, and we need to make sure that the citizens can use it. So that's what we're working towards. That this is just one small glitch that we've had to go through, and hopefully we can push through this and see, some other answers. And there's a lot of other thing that's coming through, state and federally, money-wise, it's coming through. So we're hoping to see some of that to be able to deal with this in a more positive way. But in the meantime, we're having to put a Band-Aid on something. And that's literally what it is a Band-Aid. But that's where we're at this point. And like I said, I just applaud Willow for all she's done. It's amazing. If you spend any time with her, you'd see how busy she is addressing this issue, because it's a huge issue, and she's tackled it, head on, and just really doing a great job, really great job.
Yeah.
With
On top of her real job.
yeah, outside a real job. And, she's working through Chief Gilman on this, and he's, just jumping into this. He's new, not new at the chief part. He's new at the chief part, but not new at being YPD. He's been doing it for 26 years. So he knows these issues and he's addressing them, and he's great. He's working with all of us on this. He's working with us as a council, working with Willow, and it's just it's an ongoing problem that we're all gonna have to keep dealing with. It's not gonna go away tonight, tomorrow, or the next day. It's gonna be a problem that we're gonna have to keep dealing with day after day and trying to figure out solutions to this. And that's what we're trying to do, like I said, right now, is just do a temporary fix, a Band-Aid, as you say. And that's where we're at. Sam, or would you guys like to add anything? I mean, you guys have, I'll open it up to the public here shortly. I'm just kind of bringing this out.
Thank you, Willow.
Thank you, Willow.
Is the picnic table like right there?
Hi, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Solera, the treasurer of the City Garden Association. And that's an umbrella organization. That's come under that, it's Yreka Garden, the Friends of Green Park. This is you, Arboretum Nursery, which is our and so we had, we are so happy that the Deer Creek side is put aside because we can support the this site at Oberlin. We did have. This is just a
It doesn't sound like it's on.
hard copy of something that we emailed out to
Yes.
the council, including this map and some bullets. And most of these things are things that Will already mentioned. So having to do with and Dwayne has talked about the trash pickup and the toilets and the temporary nature of this park. And so we're just one thing is that we feel, and it was portrayed on that map, normally agencies require camping 100 feet from a stream. Obviously, in this situation, that's not going to be possible, but we would ask that vegetation strip that's right along the creek not be camped.
Yes.
Because it's providing cooling the creek and it's a buffer to the creek. So, and then one thing also is if that after the campers move away and when they move out of, if they move out of Greenhorn and come over to Oberlin, that there be some attempt to kind of smooth the soil out if there's holes that are dangerous, or obviously clean up the trash, toxins that might be there, and then that some seeding can be done around bare soil. And so, and what really gives us pleasure is to hear Willow talking about her interactions with the homeless people, because we don't see them as vermin, we see them as people, and we do have contact with them as well. So, any attempt to give them, work with them, to give them a little bit of sense of pride in the space of working to help other campers perhaps that are having some issues, or do litter patrol, or pull weeds, start this or this way, any kind of thing like that, that would give us to give people a positive experience. So thank you very much.
No, thank you guys for all your hard work on keeping our parks and beautiful parks and greenways. It's just amazing the amount of work you guys have done. It's just a lot of time you've spent in it, and we appreciate that so much.
And I also wanted to mention, we have plans, a citizen named Ken Leal has offered to help do fuels reduction, and we want to work with him and the city to go in and in that area from Campus Drive and just do some hand removal of fuels to just improve that
Right on.
situation as well. So
Great.
that would be something that we would like to do in that area.
That's awesome. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess with that in mind, I think we can now open it up for the public. We got one on the, okay, we'll do that one first, then get that one. Go ahead, Arthur.
Caller number 2790, please go ahead.
Hello?
Time to be sure to identify themselves.
Can you hear us?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Okay,
Identify yourself, please.
please.
my name is Dusty Veal,
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
Dusty.
and I guess I missed the public comment period, but the reason for my call, and I've discussed this before, is a billboard coming into Yreka from the south, and it's a third of it is off and it's down, and I just curious why it's probably been down a couple of months or maybe more, why that hasn't been fixed. And I know it's not a big item when you guys are dealing with the homeless, but it seems like a fairly easy way to put out a direction to replace the billboard and have it done. I don't see that as a
No,
big
you're
problem,
absolutely
but
right.
anyway, that's,
Oops, sorry, Dusty.
I did
We
look that
actually,
up.
we actually have addressed this, and Matt Bray is here to speak about that right now for you.
Good evening, Mr.
you have to advertise it?
We ordered we had to order telephone poles for that, which is kind of odd for Public Works. And Ben just sourced those last week and got those ordered up. So we'll be scheduling that in the next couple of weeks to get the billboard redone.
Okay, it seems like, anyway, that's good. And I appreciate what you're doing with the homeless. I know that's not an easy fix. Anyway,
And Dusty,
thank
this is-
you.
Dusty, this is Councilman Middleton. I did tell them once you called me, I told them right away. So
Yep.
we've been working on it. I didn't forget about you.
Yep, you did.
And so Matt's been working on it when you did call me. So it hasn't been.
You can
working.
ask Liz, but the old days, you'd give that direction to the city manager and it would be done. That was the old days. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dusty.
Thanks, Dusty. All righty. Now we'll open it up. Don Marie.
I'm wanting to know, how many people will, can we put the map back up, please, Doctor? Okay, how many people are going to be there?
So as of right now, we don't really have a number because we don't know how many are actually going to migrate over to that area. That area will probably hold, I would say, up to a couple dozen homeless people pretty
We
easily.
have existing camps now.
Yes, there is, right. See those red dots are on
Yeah,
there?
do we have
Those are
numbers
existing, yeah,
on
those
those?
are. What's that?
Do we have numbers on those already?
On the existing camps, there's what,
So
6?
the Occupants, there's approximately 2 per camp. Approximately.
Right.
Okay, and then I'm wanting to know the porta potties. How many are there going to be out there?
We'll probably have at least 2 for sure.
I
Possibly
did fire
more, but
camp for 10 years and special event camps for 10 years. I was a cook for 10 years for them. We had a crew of 100 and at every single, just for us, we had to have at least 10 by OSHA standards.
Right.
So
right.
you're gonna need more than just 2.
Yeah, quite possibly. You're right. Like I said, it's one of those things we'll have to see how many actually do move over to that. That's where code enforcement is going to be real handy in that, because when we go to get to this point, that point in time, she's going to make contact with all those individuals. And so she'll have actually access to those numbers of who's going to be actually moving over to that area. And so that will address at that point in time. So if it does require more, then yeah, we'll have to get more at that point. So yes, I agree.
And then I'm wanting to know how many times they're gonna be cleaned out a day.
Right. That I couldn't tell you because I don't know what that statistic would be. That's where the Siskiyou Sanitary and those guys would know all that sort of thing.
So maybe we could group together all the questions again, like we have before, we have a lot of crowds.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then, I guess we're writing those down, Steve?
I'm now.
Yeah. And how many of our tax dollars are going to pay for all of this? we get the real count, I'm wanting to know why we need to make it like it's such a concentration camp by putting barbed wire and fencing 6 foot high all the way around
And
it,
it's- oops.
locking it in and locking them in at a certain time of night. You know, making it so uncomfortable that absolutely no one's gonna go there. You know, I have been homeless. I was homeless for 4 months in this city. And it's hell. I had $10,000, but I could not find a place to live. I actually ended up having to find a place to live up at the old ski resort in Mount Shasta, because I was also going to college. So I get not, you know, not having your place, living out of your car. It's not fun. And being treated like you're scum is not fun either, you know? So that's mine.
Thank you. Okay,
I think Judy's next.
that's okay.
Judy had her hand up.
What's that?
Judy had her hand up.
Yeah, that's why I let her go. Yes.
Oh, my name is Judy Crawford. I'm here as resident in Crystal Bend. I'm changing my comments to substantial. Since you're not considering that point. My questions at this point is, will the people that are currently on that park move down to the new park on the other end of the greenway? We don't feel safe walking our dogs on that nice path that was created there. I noticed just this week, there's 3 new tents right by the picnic tables. And it's involving 3 cars at least parking on the road.
Joined the meeting.
Which make it very, very difficult. For us, there's a little incline there on the road, and we can't see when a car is coming north on Deer Creek. So we have to be extremely careful. And finally, one other comment is, there's a gentleman there that's, probably you all know him, that's handicapped, uses a walker. There's been 2 times in the last month and a half that I've almost hit him. Last night, I went home with a terrible, terrible feeling in my chest because I came in at dusk. It was almost dark. He was right in the middle of the road, less than 50 feet off of Montague Road. Walking right down the middle of the road, not aware of me at all. I stopped by him and asked him, and I don't know whether he talks very well, I don't think he does, and asked him to not walk down the middle of the road, particularly when it's dark. And the last time he was in the middle of the road when it was dark in about the same location. So I would hope that some of these folks that are in that part of the greenway that really is a very lovely place could find their home in the south part. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Lisa was actually next. Is it okay? Okay, go ahead.
Lorenzo Lowe, what were the legal restrictions on that city yard side?
I don't know if we can legally, can we go into detail why?
I'll come up with an answer.
Okay.
Okay. And there's a lot of people living in their cars. Is there going to be provision for that? I mean, there's a parking lot at the south end of the greenway, but it's not very big. You could have a few there, but there's far more people than will fit there. So there needs to be some place for them to go.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Thanks. So, sorry, my thoughts are not as organized as they. Am I to understand it perfectly that the Deer Creek site and the site across from the city yard are off the table now?
Correct.
I have some questions regarding the the area over by COS as to why some people feel like that is logistically not as good as the Greenway project off the Overland. You know, the area over by COS without, you know, you're just looking for an answer to what is a bad situation all around. So there's no good answer, right? So without, you know, insulting the people that would like to enjoy the Greenway and without insulting COS like you're concerned about, you know, the temporary answer is that they temporarily have to go somewhere. So, you know, the services and the areas that they're trafficking frequently are on the south end of town. So, I mean, logistically, rather than getting them more ingrained in the Greenway project, which, I mean, it has to change. People in Yreka, they're gonna need to use that at some point. I think that I've talked to 5 people over the last 2 years that have enjoyed it for, you know, a brief minute or two, which is basically no one. You know, if the city provides services over in that area and they get established in an area that they like, is going to be harder to relocate them in the future. Or they're just going to feel like they want to go back to a certain area that they've been at before. With, you know, whether it's heading to the mental health facility or some of the treatment facility or down to the shopping center to Panhandle or wherever the trafficking, you know, the area behind COS, not behind COS, but just at the side of COS and then across the street behind the Chevron gas station. No, that's a large area right there, and it's much more patrollable than anything that you can patrol or keep an eye on over by the Greenway. I know that some of the, you know, the people involved with the Greenway have to be, you know, they're nervous about, you know, the work that's been done, destroying some of the work that's been done. You're not going to keep everyone out of the creek if they're camping over there. It doesn't matter how many facilities you're providing them. You know, you're not going to have a buffer zone. Somebody's not going to be there patrolling that on the, you know, every hour of every day. The area over there seems like a spot where you can set up something for them to provide help and services for them in an area that's more patrollable. It's closer to the areas that they're frequenting, less foot traffic coming to and from and along the freeway. Wondering why it seems like that is a second idea to the Greenway.
I got it down.
What's that?
Well, I'm taking all the questions
Yeah, we're gonna do them all.
and writing them down rather, because
Okay.
there'll be some repeats and that sort of thing.
Sorry, I have several notes here. My apologies. Another thing is it a possibility to, you know, the parks and recreation areas need to have some sort of rules that a peace officer can enforce? Is a no loitering policy during certain hours or for certain lengths of time possible at any of the local parks or the recreation areas which would encumber the Greenway? You know, a lot of officers that I've talked to, you know, you can say, hey, I'm over at Greenhorn Park and there's 3 syringes in the sandbox and 4 people camping over here in the dry creek bed, and they can't come over and do anything about it. Much less than give them a call and say, go talk to them, say, are you minding your piece of cues, that type of thing. It doesn't feel like they have anything to be able to enforce to tell them, hey, this area is for families, kids, can't have syringes, that type of thing around here. I know for a while that public health was running their syringe van right next to Lower Greenhorn, which was, I mean, you know, as much as I want them to have the syringe, there needs to be an appropriate area and it can't be next to the park. So the city has to have some way to enforce some sort of no loitering for those areas, don't you think?
We put an end to that. You know that, right?
What's that?
We put those services are not at the park anymore.
Yeah, I mean, just an example is the longer that something, a space is available or whatnot, then those services will eventually come to them. I mean, if you like the Greenway, if you don't stop the fact that they can camp along the Greenway project right now, you know, at the end of the year or whenever you're planning on trying to offer them somewhere else, it seems like the longer it goes, the harder it is to change and then fix and repair at a costly sum. As far as the area next to COS, does the city have access to the area behind the Chevron? Or is,
It's private
Yeah,
property.
That's private,
property.
yeah, that's all was part of it got sold, but yeah, we can do the back route, we can get through there, but that's not our property. So
with the money that the city's considering spending, providing services at one place or another, it's feasible to ask a property owner to be able to rent or lease the use of something that's clearly not being used at this moment, if it's just temporarily anyway, a better spot than what the city has available for property that they own. It seems like, you know, renting something would be an option at this point.
eat me up, not, actually, so I'm gonna answer some. Anyways, so as far as that'll be just gonna be future discussions. We're gonna have more discussions. This discussion tonight is just a first of series. So these are gonna be future questions and answers that we're gonna have to come up with, because it's obviously not gonna be something that we're gonna solve tonight, and not anything that is gonna get addressed properly tonight either, as far as that goes. These other, other issues, we are definitely gonna deal with these and keep addressing these as they come up. In the process, we're gonna be doing a lot more research. I do research on a pretty much a daily basis on what other cities are doing, how they're tackling it. And one of the main things, this is why we're doing what we're doing with the urban campsite, is it gives us the legal opportunity to be able to have individuals in a certain area and keep them safe and keep us safe too. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot more future discussions on where we're going. Pretty much what we're trying, which we want more discussion right now. I love positive input. Right now, we're just trying to do the temporary fix. That's what our main thing is tonight. Trying to figure out how we put the Band-Aid on it tonight to where we can move it. Because like I said, getting back to, like I said, I gotta answer some of these questions. I can't go to the end. Getting back to what you said about COS, we got to do a fuel reduction there first. So we have to move them out of that area first. So that has to go, clean that up first, do some brush, movement, clean that up. And where it is going to be safe, because that's a time bomb waiting to happen. Same with like the base of Butcher Hill. That's another one. There's key areas around town that are literally real dangerous fire zones that we've identified. And so that's one of them that we have identified. So
Well, I can, just knowing people in the community and whatnot, I can throw a rock and hit 20 people that'll donate enough money to pay anybody to come in and fuel reduction that. I know several contractors that will donate the majority of their time if, maybe
absolutely.
fuel recovered or something like that.
Yep.
Rather than, and the people that would donate the money would be the people who like to use the parks and the Greenway.
Mhm.
And if we set that up over there, we're doing a lot of logistics in an area that cannot be as well managed as an area such as, the area across from mental health over there.
That's a little bit actually harder to manage than what you think, because they're tucked back up in the hill ways. So we can't have the officers that literally have to go on foot and go above to actually patrol the upper part of that. I know, because I'm walking every day, so. So I know exactly what it's like up there. And Willow sees it all the time too. You have to be able to go up from up above. They're camping all along that hillside too. And that's why we have to make that safe, where we blazed a trail through there already, part of it. So that helped, but we still got to mitigate a little bit more fuel reduction and get some of that out there. So
Well, if it's gonna be an urban campsite and there's gonna be fuels reduction, at the effort of 3 extra hours, you could have a patrollable road around the backside of the camp. I mean,
Right.
It's just.
like I said, I keep going back to this is just gonna be a temporary thing. too.
Right.
We already have a location that's a lot better all the way around. It's not gonna have this barbed wire fence all the way around. It's actually gonna be open and accessible, so. Thank you. Hello.
My first time here. So Diane called. Just 3 things, question, actually, in a comment on the behavioral health. Yeah, I don't really like the idea of them hanging around there very permanently either, because then they wander into the park and, or whatever that's worth. But I do have a question on the permanent site, because I work on Foothill at the end of the ag department. And right now it's kind of nice, although we had several break-ins in our animal shelter. We were actually thinking it was people trying to get a dog. So shouldn't have had back. So that dog's out of there, so they didn't steal anything. The thought of, so that where the homeless camp will be over there by Beacon Hope, I just see them kind of wandering down our street, down suburban propane, right back down to the Greenway to go to wherever they're gonna go on that end of town. I just see this traffic of people, and I don't know if that's gonna be the case, but that's just something to think about. And right now, it feels pretty low key out there, and I don't know how that'll feel. And then there was a question, somebody else wanted to ask about, the ranchers have to put all this money up and fence cattle off the creek. Are you guys gonna try to keep them out of the creek? How's that gonna work? And that was pretty much, I had something else. Oh, and Matt, I have something for you down there in the central, we go into the freeway, the central exit. The Yreka Creek, they got like a big log stuffed in the drain on the side of that for, I think, a walkway. So anyway, I think that was pretty much it. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have any more public comment?
My only comment, well, first, I don't envy you guys for trying to have to figure this out. This is a hot mess, I get that. And no one is, that I've heard at today's meeting has said anything about our kids in the community. So I only want to voice my opinion that in the future, I realize even with your permanent Beacon of Hope area, that may not always be the permanent spot. We don't know how big this is gonna get. We don't know where this is going. I just want everyone to be thinking about any future locations, temporary or permanent, that they're not near our schools, our grade schools, high schools, elementary schools, and the parks. When Asa was talking about a couple of years ago with the needle exchange at the park, that had been going on a long time, and we were there with my niece, and it was not an enjoyable day. And we could not go to our park. There were so many homeless that day, in areas they shouldn't have been doing things visibly that they should not have been doing. So as a parent of children, I just hope that you guys will look at that as any of your temporary or permanent options, that it is far enough from the schools and our parks where we're supposed to be taking our kids to enjoy themselves.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
appreciate it. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this is input like, all that. So we have the public's input and understand all the different dynamics of all this. There's so many different elements to this issue that affects all of us in a lot of different levels. And it's no easy fix like we were talking about. There's no easy solution. There's no solution as of right now. It's a complicated issue that's not going to be solved overnight until we start getting some more help from the state and federal level. We're talking about behavioral health and all this. Well, this a lot of these individuals, and Willow will speak on that too, that a lot of these individuals have some issues, mental illness issues. A lot of people say they have a drug or an alcohol problem. Well, some of those are the side effects of mental illness. These are the what contributes to that. So, a lot of this we got to remember too, and I've said this last meeting, that some of these individuals are actually people that grew up here in this town. That's went on a bad path and did some bad things and now are in a bad place. And some of these individuals I know personally, they have families that are prominent, figures of this town, and something happened and now they're taking a bad path. So we just need to keep that in mind that, we talk about them homeless as sometimes of these bad people, but they're not all bad people. They've made bad choices, or they're going down a bad path, or they just, like I said, have mental illness problems that have caused them to go down these avenues. And with that, we need more facilities to help some of these individuals. They need to be able to get off the streets and get the help they need to keep them off the streets. So it's, like I said, it's a fix that we can't fix. We don't have the funding as a city to fix it properly. I wish we did, but until the, like I said, the state and feds start realizing, and they're starting to realize that there's a huge issue. And part of it is, like I described before on the last meeting, that one of the things we do every year, it's been every year except for this last year because of COVID, is the point in time count. We go out and count these individuals. Well, 4 years ago, Siskiyou County wasn't even doing a point in time count. So the HUD, Housing for Urban Development, didn't even realize that we had any homeless individuals in Siskiyou County. So now we're doing that every year. This next year, we're actually going to start doing a summertime count. So then they'll actually know how many we have during the summertime, because obviously here in Siskiyou County, we're more heavily impacted by homelessness during the summer months. We see a lot more of it. Mount Shasta and Tweed and all those guys, they see a lot more of it too, because the climate's so much more inviting during the summer months in those areas. So I actually chair for the 7 counties of the North State, the point in time count. And so we're actually going to start doing a point in time count during the summer this following year, just to try to bring awareness to our uppity ups, to show them that we have a bigger problem than what they see. Because that's being impacted so heavily during the summer months, it impacts our law enforcement, it impacts our fire department. It impacts so many of our resources that it really hurts us financially as a city. And we need to get the funding to address these issues. And that's where we're at, is keep pushing forward and bringing that awareness. And hopefully we'll start seeing that more and more. But until then, we just keep pushing forward and trying to fix what we can. Like I said earlier, putting a Band-Aid on something, and that's all we're doing right now, is putting a Band-Aid on it. But like I said, we also need to realize that a lot of these individuals are people too, that have just went down a bad path or had something in their life that took them down that path. So sometimes it's hard to have that compassion. I realize that, but when you go out and talk to them, like Willow said, she knows them on a personal basis and goes and talks to them on a daily basis, I should say. And she knows a lot of these individuals and what they're going through. And, same with me, I've talked to tons and tons of these individuals and know their stories. And you'd be surprised some of the stories they tell you and what they've had to go through. So just with that in mind, I just wanted to state that. Is there anybody else from the public would like to make some more comments? So, like I said, that's what we're here for. We want public comments on this.
Do you want me to go through the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, and just so you know, Chief, and maybe Willow, you might want to wander up close to the mic. Yeah. So one of the questions was, how much money are we spending on this? And I think that's really multiple questions. I'm not sure that we have really a cost estimate on how much it will cost to set up this camp, nor the permanent camp, nor how much ongoing expense there will be. So we really can't tell you that number right now. What I think we can tell you is that a great deal of the resources of the police department, as well as the public works department, and probably other people that I don't even know are working out on staff, are going towards dealing with the existing homeless encampment. So that's not a great answer, but it's probably the best that we can do right now.
We have had discussion on putting this on our budget though.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
that is definitely something we're starting to budget more for, because it's gonna be an ongoing problem, you
Right.
know, from here on out. So unfortunately, that's something, a budget item that we had to put on as a city. And that's one of those, like I said, one of those unfunded liabilities that's been put on us through the state and the federal government, that they put this on us and haven't really funded us with this. So it's gonna be an ongoing thing, money-wise, that we're gonna keep dealing with.
The next question was why barbed wire at the camp? And that's not what we're thinking about, as I
No.
recall, neither the permanent nor the temporary site. I think that came up in regards to some,
That came up with the city yard, actually.
with the city
We were
yard in
discussing the
terms of
city yard,
protecting
we were
equipment.
talking about
Right.
at that point, having more protection for the city
Right.
yard. But yeah, as far as the permanent location, that's not, I mean, it's gonna get fenced in somewhat, but it's not gonna be like a prison, no.
right,
By no means. We have to fence off some of the area, yes, because we're bordering some other private property and stuff. So some of that will get fenced off. It's not gonna be a fence though that you'd find in a prison or anything like that, though, no. It's,
I just meant loosen some of the rules so that you'll actually get people to go there.
Yeah.
Because if you make it so uninviting, God, who's gonna go there?
exactly. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yep.
so another question was, and I want to make sure I get this right. Roughly it was, will the people who are currently in the Deer Creek Park now move to the Greenway? Was that your question?
That's basically it.
Okay.
Because we have quite a few up there.
Right,
So Judy, if you don't mind, I'll snag that one. So in that regard, I can see if they want to. I cannot require them to. However, or at least two of the camps I know that recently moved in are very open to the other suggestions, are very open to. Their concern was that they didn't want to be continually moved without knowing essentially like a means to an end. And so they had actually specifically asked where there was additional city property. And so there's multiple different locations that have city property. And that's part of the problem, is that it's publicly owned. So the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals speaks directly to publicly owned properties. However, I have gotten complaints, so I actually have that on my to-do list to be down in there talking to them tomorrow morning, and that's what I will be doing.
There, just as another thought, they park their cars, like I said, right on, and it's a dangerous situation.
So as long as they are within a normal parking, like, because there's not
They're on the
actually,
street.
no, I get that. So as long as they're not blocking the entrance right there, that, like the handicap ramp, as long as they're parked on that side of the street, as long as, I mean, I can obviously, urge them to park a little further south, so they're not on that crest. But
It's
unfortunately,
the crest of this.
right, and unfortunately, I can't say you're not allowed to park on a public street if there's not a red curb, if there's not something where we have designated this to parking. I can't stop somebody from parking on a street, unfortunately.
Well, if you
I
can tell.
I can nudge them and see if they'll move their car forward, but as far as like a specific spot, that would be something that, council, public works would all have to work through, saying this particular spot on this particular street is designated as no parking. But like I said, I have zero problem going in and speaking to them and asking them if they wouldn't mind parking a little further to the south.
And my big concern about the one handicapped person is in there.
Yes,
He is in a bad way,
Yes.
health-wise, and he is, I almost hit him last night.
we make contact with him on the regular. He is very well known within the PD, I can assure you of that. As far as trying to get him in somewhere to get him help, they also have to want the help. So that's the other side of that coin, unfortunately.
And he's camped way down there
Yes,
in the
he
middle
is.
of the,
Yes,
and you're
yes,
trying to keep him out of the creek
yes.
on the new part, and he's in the creek, basically.
so I think that answers the next question I had, which is there anything you can do about the handicapped individual that's walking down?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The next question has to do with legal restrictions on the yard. There are basically two things there. One is that the city has what's called an infiltration gallery well, and I could have more detail on it from our public works director, but basically there's a certain distance from that is considered sensitive, and we would have to go through some assessment with the, help me, water board? Drinking water board. So that's one of the other thing is that with our employees down there, we have an obligation to meet and confer on working conditions. And right now they interact with that area quite a bit. We were asked if there are provisions for cars, where can they go? And if I'm not mistaken, the campsites that we're looking at right now do not have provisions for cars. Right, okay. So,
Can it be possibly made to have parking?
There will not be parking in the greenway. They're not to say that there won't be additional discussion, because I know that that has been a discussion, which would be potentially tabled for later, if I may speak to that. But that has been a topic, because there are a lot of people who are in their vehicles and so I fully understand that, but that would be tabled for another discussion, absolutely.
okay.
Well, in conjunction to that too, we pretty much can't stop them from parking and camping on this, they can park there for what, 72 hours, Mark?
Correct.
Yeah, so and they can camp out at pretty much anywhere on a public street in Yreka
But
itself.
not in the park.
Not in the
Not
park,
in the
correct.
park.
On the side of the road, they can park pretty much anywhere they want, and they do. They're right now up there by COS. They're every day, like I said, I'm there every day, so.
But not in the
There's
greenway.
at least 4 vehicles that are camped out there every day, and they move here to there, and it's not the same spot, but they know that they can only park there so long. Anyways, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say, we don't allow vehicles off road. There's
Right.
already laws in place for that, so you can't drive across the fields. It's fire danger or high fire danger. So it's not a punishment, for them. It's not allowed now. Except in emergency.
And parking in the greenway is not allowed.
It's off-road, so no.
Oh,
No.
And I mostly meant where the parking lot is, like,
Oh.
could we make it bigger? That's what I.
Oh,
Okay,
I
I see what
see.
you're saying.
Out toward Overland.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That'll be something we can talk about
Yeah.
later. I'm going to skip a question and come back to it, but in terms of, I have written down here, no littering at local parks, also include Greenway. I think it's a question about enforcing some, I'll call it quality of life laws in general. If you could speak to that, Chief.
Right, I
Yeah.
wasn't very well prepared today, and I was off the cuff to be able to make it here. Got off work about 30 seconds before the meeting started, but my comment should have been, I guess, camping. Technically, parks are for everyone, but, it seems like the city could put a policy in place, an enforceable policy, that there is no camping in public parks or recreation areas. That would save the cost of having to rehab and repair an entire greenway project.
Let me address
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Too far
I
because-
just meant, I used the wrong word. my fault.
No, you're good. I actually know where you're going. That's why. Quicker.
Yeah.
So what we talked about in the beginning is we're not allowed to sign. Because of this Boise decision, we have laws. We have no camping laws. We have littering laws in our businesses, which is different than our. We have littering laws, we have campfire laws, we have laws for driving off roads. We have all these laws already in effect. We're not allowed to enforce them because of Boise. So, a lot of people are asking us why we're not doing this, why we're not doing that. We actually, if I did, then the city would have lost. So that's why we're trying to come up with this solution, so I can. Until we have a solution, which is the purpose of these meetings, I can't do it. Other than a public safety issue.
Were you saying that if once we have a permanent location that they can't go, then you can say you're not allowed to camp in the park, but you can go here?
Right, keep it temporary position. If everyone agrees on a position, if we have a place to move them, and I can tell them not allowed to stay here. I may not be able to arrest them, but at least I can write a citation to the cars. That's why the purpose is.
I think we answered the question about the needles during the conversation. There was a question about the accessing the land behind Chevron, which is private property. Could we lease or use it? And what's that?
Yeah, man.
Right. Well, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that that property just changed hands, number one. Number two is that there were homeless out on that site previously, and the owner, as the owner of private property, can move them off of the site, has been diligent about keeping them off the site as well. I would say that we haven't had any discussion really about leasing or using that property for that. One of the sidebars with dealing with encampments is that sometimes if they're bad enough, they can cause hazardous waste problems. And so it's unlikely that we would get someone to allow us to put that use on their property. And, so.
And that property is going to be getting improved. They're going to be starting.
Right, they're going to be developing that property soon. So anyway, I think it was partially answered before, but I just wanted to add that information. And Chief, I think that, unless you have something else, that kind of covers that. Okay. There was a discussion about, or question comment about, will the permanent site cause any problems down the streets with the agricultural department, other buildings?
Well, not just us, but the businesses.
Sure, right. And that's certainly possible in almost anywhere that you put the site. How then?
Can I elaborate on that? Because I mean, we have a lot of trucks, we have a lot of spray equipment, we got all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So that was just kind of, there is a little bit of a concern,
Sure.
Yeah.
so.
No, absolutely. And that's what's tough about this whole thing is, I don't know of any perfect place for it, period. And no matter what we do, where we, have the individuals go, there's going to be some type of impact someplace, plain and simple. I mean, I don't know what that solution is at this point. And like I said, we don't even know what the foot traffic's going to be if that became the location. Hopefully becomes a location that we don't know what kind of foot traffic that's going to generate through that area. So there's a lot of different questions.
Another question was, how do we keep people out of the creek? And that was contrasted with what ranchers need to do with their fences. I'm not sure we have a great.
No, so with that though, Diane, one of the forms that I actually have them sign in agreement to being in the area, obviously it's not an arrestable thing, but basically it's holding them accountable for their space, really. But one of them is no camping within the creek. And there's actually items within the Department of Fish and Wildlife that state you can't do those things within actually 150 feet of a waterway, let alone 100 feet, like Jennifer was speaking to a little bit ago. So that's actually one of the items that I will be monitoring, that I will be going in, that I will be managing, because it is a huge concern. And it's not just the Parks and Greenway Club. I will be in there ensuring that that is maintained, because not only is it for the safety of the creek, it's dealing with MS4, which is something that we actually as the city have to abide by, which is a state thing update. There's a handful of things that go into that. So dealing with just the MS4 side of it, which is actually the stormwater drainage, that's something that I actually am, as code enforcement, required to be enforcing. And so maintaining what is going into our waterways is part of my job. So that is one of the things that I will be ensuring, is to make sure that they are not in that creek.
Which goes back to also being able to enforce it. It goes back to, we have to have a place for them to go. And if we don't have a place for them to go, being able to enforce this becomes a very hard struggle, because they're saying, no, this is my place to go. So there's a lot of different levels to that, for sure. Don Marie, you have a question?
Okay, I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it or the park people can answer it. But we used to have beavers there.
Mhm.
I don't know if the beavers are still there, but what about these homeless people's dogs?
So the dogs are still required to be on leash. They're still required to have rabies. They're still required to have licensing. They're still required to have all of the things. And when they are caught running at large, they are taken to the kennels. They are still booked. They are still required to pay the fees. They're still required to do all the things. If anybody who had their dog get off leash, and I or the upcoming ACO or any of the officers manage to capture these dogs that are running at large, they have to abide by the same things. Absolutely exact same things. And for what it's worth, there are beavers. They're still, so they're on the far south end of town by east side or west side road, and then they're also down closer to Burgess. And so they are there. They are there.
So my the last question that I have is, I saved it even though it came up earlier, because I think it's part of what the council's discussing is, and the question roughly is, why is the parcel next to COS not an okay place? And why would that be a superior place to the Greenway? So I think that's a question without, that's a question for discussion as opposed to it being answered.
Right, like I said,
And with
this
that-
part of it right now is because, like I said, we need to clear off that area so we can do a fuel reduction. And so things are gonna get moved around. And a lot of those individuals will, after we get it cleared off, will probably migrate right back over to that area. So yeah, but if we have another place for them to go, which hopefully if we buy just enough time to where we can get our location that we've already secured, and we just need to get the ground cleared, then this will be, open that up to where we can. And it's hopeful, we're hopefully get it to where it's just, we're talking just like a couple months, and we're just hoping and praying it's just gonna be a couple months to where we can get the property going next to Beacon of Hope and get that for, it would resolve a lot of these other issues with the Greenway, with the parks and stuff like that, because these are things, our greenways and parks and stuff, we were for all of us to enjoy. Right now, we're not being able to enjoy them, so we gotta figure something out.
Mayor, that ends the actual questions. Obviously, the council heard a lot more comments and suggestions, but I believe those, I answered the questions that were unanswered in real time.
Okay,
I have one more question,
okay, Don.
and this is for the chief of police. I'm wanting to know how you can find these people, and how many times do you find them before they don't pay, and they don't pay, and they don't pay, and they don't pay, what else?
That's a long answer to that question. The laws are restricted. We can do that.
So at this point, I guess, we'll, as a council, and ask council, do we want to move forward, or do we want to have a field trip? Which is fine, that's fine with me, but keep in mind, like I said, and I'm fine with the field trip. We have delayed this, 2 or 3 times now, and we're getting more critical fire danger as we move on. Yeah, we've been fortunate enough lately, we've had actually some precipitation, which is great. We got more than we normally do in the first couple of weeks of June, which is awesome, but that's only gonna make the fuel levels even higher come July, August, and September. So, I'm all for, field trip and this, but I think at this point, that's fine. But then we need to make a decision, because we're literally running out of time, and we're gonna have some, like I said, major fire issues if we don't start litigating these issues right off the bat.
I realize that we're up against time constraints, so if I'm the only one
Oh, I don't think, I'm not
that,
necessarily,
that wants to go on the field trip, I can maybe ask someone to take me on my own. Is there anyone else that's interested in seeing the ground?
I'd like to see the property too.
it's fine, that's why, like I said, I only took one person, so I didn't
And you
wanna-
guys already saw it,
violate
so
the
if two
Brown
of
Act.
us go, we don't have to have a special meeting and take the world, although you're all welcome. But if we could set something up with you and maybe Sam and Jennifer
Yeah, I'd like, be able to check,
as soon as possible.
catch some chief and
Meanwhile, if you
Chief
want to.
Gilman and maybe the Parks and Greenway.
Okay, well, yeah, because they know where it is. That's fine with me. I mean, if you want to move on and go forward, that's fine. I just would like to see on the
That would be
ground.
fine. So I guess
Exactly
when
what we're looking at.
our next scheduled meeting would be July 1st.
Do you want to wait that long, or you want to have
No.
a special meeting next week?
No, my point is that I don't have a problem with that. I've seen it on here. I want to see it in person, but if we want to go ahead and approve it, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I know that we don't have a lot of options. That's my point. And if this is temporary, I know that Asa brought up and some others brought up, if we move them to a certain place, are they really going to leave later? That's.
Well, this,
another problem.
and getting back to that, that we are, like I said, we are working with Siskiyou Greenway Parks and Recreation. We're working with them to where once we get that started, and hopefully in a couple months, then we're gonna start working on projects with them right off the bat. As soon as we can get that moved over to the Foothill property, where we're supposedly, gonna be establishing this urban campsite, then we're gonna be working diligently with them to clear that area and work on certain areas to revegetate or whatever we need to do to get that area up to snuff right off the bat. Because this is something we're not going to let roll over for very long. I guarantee you that. We've already, like I said, we've always spoke with them, and this cannot go into the winter months at all, because we have issues with going into the winter months, because then we have all the water runoff that could do some type of contamination or whatnot. So we don't want to even want to go down that road. So this is one of those things, it's literally just a temporary fix. And I totally understand what you're saying, because yeah, they start establishing, they have a hard time getting out of it. I get that, but we're going to, like I said, start working on some of these fuel reduction areas first and foremost, because we're entering into that season right now, that if we don't work on our fuel reduction areas that are high, high traffic on the homeless areas, there's a few identified areas. If we don't have someplace for them safe to go that's not going to cause a fire, then we're going to be paying the price as a city. That's my huge concern, is we don't need to be another Talent, Phoenix, Paradise, or Happy Camp and watch
Or
our
weed.
town burn down.
Or
weed, yeah, I
Or
can't forget
closer
weed,
to
or
home.
weed. Yeah, but a lot of, they have improvements up there in Oregon one, that they're pretty good, pretty sure that it was caused from a homeless individual up there, so. They haven't proven it yet, but they're working on that. I know law enforcement is up there. I've had discussions with them, but,
So
that's our main thing.
So my only main concern, going forward with this property is I really don't want to hear from the citizens again about all the trash that was left right out here, visible from the freeway. It was all right here at that big camp.
Right.
People complain all the time. If we do go forward with this property, and Willow said they would not be out, it would be cut off right here, correct?
Basically, yeah, so on
'Cause
on that 2 point, the in having, sorry to clarify.
Yeah, just clarify. No, I want to clarify.
So doing that, it's gonna be a more managed space than
Okay.
there ever was prior.
Okay.
So being that, there's gonna be the daily trash pickup in that area, there's gonna be the service, porta potties in that area, there's going to be the regular, patrol in that area. And so in that regard, it's not gonna be a matter of allowing a camp to get to that volume.
Because it was bad. And,
I agree.
and then I think Steve had mentioned before about the urban campsite they did in Oregon, providing them the tarps that they use to blend it, either be brown or green instead of being bright colors, that it really, like if you're driving, I didn't even notice where it's at, and it's been there for a long time. You drive right past it and don't know that it's right where it is by Crater Lake Ford and all that right behind. So they're all.
Oh, you found it.
I looked it up.
Oh, you looked it up. Oh, okay.
But no, I've been by there several times, and I'm
Okay.
all, it's right there. You drive by, you don't know, it's right along the freeway. It's
Instead of
camoed
the
in.
blue condos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the big blue tarps there. And so you don't really notice it up there. And so that's a great idea. I think that we
No, I
can.
agree. I think it's
do as
something
well.
we could work on, and maybe that might be a project for maybe a nonprofit, or maybe even us to do, what we call the tarp exchange. And, do a tarp exchange where it's more of a camouflage and doesn't stand out like the blue tarps do.
And the
or
red,
some of the
yeah.
other things stand out so
Okay.
much, so.
So yeah,
So-
I'm fine moving forward if we, with those, the temporary, and then Jen and I can go out with them, and, but I did go on a ride along, and we did drive through there at night with the, I went with Cash, I forget his last name, I'm drawing a blank. I'm gonna ride along with him about 3 weeks ago, I guess it was. Something like that, I don't know, time goes by fast. So I went from some 7 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning, and we did drive through, and I was surprised because I didn't see, I go, oh, there's no one camped out here. So, oh, yes, there is, and he pointed out, because I couldn't see them. But he's like, oh, no, there's 3 here, and he pointed them out. But we did drive through there from Foothill Drive to the suburban, and so it is easy to patrol there. So, yeah.
So Mayor, I'm kind of watching to see what the discussion's doing. I'm hearing that we need to set up a tour for the council members that have not been already on a tour. So we will,
Soon, like tomorrow or Monday.
we'll work that out. Chief, can you and your department handle that, or is it? Got it, okay.
And
And
Zoom.
also I'd like to,
SGPGA might.
yeah, that's what I was
might
gonna
be
say, if
involved, but-
they could be present, I
So,
much appreciate one of you guys, or all you guys being present too.
so I'm gonna ask the chief to set that up. I think it's important to have the tour. If there's someone from SGPGA that can be there, that's great.
That'd be great.
If not, I think that you probably want to have the tour sooner than later.
Yes.
I'm hearing, provide some, I'm gonna call them tan tarps because I don't know what the color of this wall is.
Camo.
Or something like that is an idea. I'm kind of getting the idea that the site on, the Greenway near Oberlin is the site that you'd like us to move forward with.
Correct.
Now, there was a recommendation to not have the encampments extend north of where the existing picnic table is, and that's sort of across the thing. There are a number of things, and are we prepared to talk about the different things that would need to go in, like porta potties and wash stations? And there was a discussion about how we would handle dumpsters, but I'm not sure that we've
Bigger
got.
dumpsters.
Or do you want us to
What
just?
what she said earlier, that because of expressing the dumpsters, and that was the first thing that come to my mind too, well, let's put dumpsters out there, make it easy, but what Willow's saying, that it makes perfect sense, by doing the trash pickup on a daily basis like that, it's gonna have less of an impact, and then people aren't gonna abuse it on the other side too.
I'm not necessarily asking you to solve the problem. It's more like, do you want us to go forward at this point is
With
what
the
I'm kind of
dumpster?
looking. No, with all of this.
Yes.
Is, do you want us to go forward? Because what we're really looking for is direction. You can actually take a formal action if you would like to. And then there obviously are a lot of things that need to be worked out. There's been a lot of thought going into it, but this is a relatively new site. So there'll be some back and forth of deciding, but that's kind of what I'm looking for from the council is some direction. And obviously, we can come back to you at a later date in July.
But she won't be here.
Funny guy.
We can come back, but I think that I want to make sure that we understand what your direction is, and then I'm also going to be looking at Public Works and police in particular, so that if they have questions of you right now, in terms of moving forward, that we ask them.
Okay.
And if not, then I think that we have a pretty good idea of how to move forward. I should look up and see if you're nodding. Yeah, you're nodding, good. It's always a good sign. Of how to move forward, and we may need to check in from time to time, because this is a new thing for us.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, are there any more specifics from either Public Works or PD that you think we need to talk about tonight?
No, not tonight.
Okay,
Capital wants to find a place.
yeah, I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions that we have. Some of them we'll be able to work out at the staff level. Some of them we may want to consult with you, or at least give you an update at a future date.
It's so funny to say.
I'm doing what I can.
Funny guy.
Yes.
And to be
For you-
clear,
for those of you who don't know, he's retiring, and that's why we're laughing about
the end
that.
of the month.
He's only got a couple more weeks and he's out of here.
2, yes.
Not
Not
that you're counting.
how many hours?
You know, I used to know that. I don't now. So, okay. So is that sort of the
Yes.
consensus of the council?
I have a couple of questions, quick questions, if that's all right.
You want to come down to the mic? Or I guess I should let you do that. You're in charge.
Yes,
You got to ask him. All right. But really, come on down.
we should be going to, yeah, because it's all being recorded. so.
Yes.
Just wondering, you mentioned you were wanting to get things cleaned up before the winter watershed, because you're worried about the green area. So if the possibility of the Foothill project is not going to be culminated for, Corey mentioned, the possibility of 3 to 6 months. Doesn't that,
No,
Hopefully
no,
not
we're
that
about
long.
3 months.
doesn't that put no time to clean up before winter water starts to hit for the
No, we should.
proposed Overland area?
They
Yeah,
started
so
it.
we're looking at about 3 months, not 3 to 6, 3 months.
Did I hear that you're a contractor, sir?
What's that?
You said you said earlier contractor friends, but I wasn't sure if you were a contractor.
He knows.
No,
Local blue collar worker.
Okay, all right. Well, I just.
And business
Be-
owner.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, because I think that you're recognizing that, yes, there are short timelines that need
Yes.
to be met. And we know that, we're working very hard to make that happen. I wish I could tell you that it was gonna happen right away, but we think that we can get it done before winter hits.
Well, it's-
And our goal actually is to get it done in September.
By
we'll see.
September,
By September.
not in September, by September.
Okay,
I would like it done by
Yesterday,
August.
This is
Sure.
where, this is
Yeah.
where the community comes in, because once we do get the ground cleared, this can be a community effort on trying to get this foothill property up and running as soon as possible. And yes, calling for contractor friends, because I know the same amount of contractor friends as you do, and the same ones. And yes, we'll be calling on a lot of those guys and individuals helping us to get this thing going in a forward motion as quickly as possible. So,
And the other question was for, the area that seems to be the less desirable over by COS. Is it not possible to do fire abatement around a couple people that are camping over there right now?
we plowed a cap line on across up the one side and then clear over to the road over there.
I thought one of the reasons why it was a
Hudson
less
Road.
desirable location was the fire abatement.
It is,
Needed
we
fire.
have to further that project, though, get into it more. There's a lot of brush in there too, that we'd have to move them from one spot to another spot in that same location that you're speaking of. They're right in the middle of that brush. They actually have brush piled on their tents. So this is the fire mitigation that we have to do, the fire fuel reduction we have to do is literally on their tents on a lot of those. So we'd have to move them out in order to clean up that. Well, in order to move them out, we have to have someplace else to go. We can't, they're not just gonna up and move 2 feet over and then move back 2 feet, move back. They're not gonna do that. It's either, they want a little bit longer term established, yeah,
And
place
the
to stay.
necessary fuels reduction has already been done to a choice perimeter over by the Overland property.
The Overland property, no, we're gonna keep them out of any spots that are gonna be a high fire danger area. That's the whole thing of why we looked at these areas and stuff. That is not a high fire danger area where they're gonna be at. They're away from Butcher, that's a high fire area. They're gonna be away from that hillside. They're gonna be more in a spot that's not gonna be high fuel, high fire danger area. So, yes.
We're not saying that, at least I'm not saying that this location we're talking about is the best one in all of Yreka.
No.
What we're
No.
saying is it's the least worst.
and they could go back to Campus Drive, like I said, they
Yeah,
could go back
yeah,
there.
With all of our efforts, they
Yeah.
could still
Oh,
go
yeah.
back.
And I think they will, like Dasa mentioned, I mentioned before here, they're gonna be wanting to go by, this is where it's busier, the services are,
True.
they're not gonna be wanting to walk every
All that
day,
way.
all that way.
The food stores,
So
panhandling.
I know some people don't want to hear that, but I just have a feeling. That's
Right.
my personal
I
opinion.
do want to add one more thing. In the conversations that I've actually had with individuals, if we're gonna be doing fuel reduction, if we're gonna be removing shade, if we're gonna be removing.
They won't go
all
back
that
there?
stuff, They told me if they want shade,
Uh,
they told me that if they want cool, they told me they don't wanna be out in the baking sun.
Right.
Okay,
So if we're doing a fuel reduction on that hill and we're removing the capability to hide and or not have as much shade,
and I wasn't aware that we're clearing the whole.
no.
Lots
so
of-
Okay,
we're-
okay.
we're- So basically what the fuel reduction, from what my understanding of it is it's the dead, dying, or deceased trees.
Okay.
As well as the buckbrush.
Okay,
So that's what's being removed.
okay,
And so, like Mayor was saying, oh, not even kidding, a lot of those camps literally have dead trees.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Have brush, have everything mounded on the sides of their tents. And so they are essentially encapsulating themselves in a fireball.
Oh, yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Oh, it's a time bomb.
yeah, I saw that.
Right, so, removing those fuels actually might deter people from going back.
And some of them will probably go back, like they're saying, just because, but then there'll be less of an impact then at that point in time, there'll be less individuals. And the other thing too, when we're doing this urban campsite, part of the things that we're looking at doing, we're kind of looking at a lot of what's going on, the Road Retreat and some of the other places up in Bedford. They actually do huge canopies over some of these areas to where they have the shelter that they need, the shade that they need and stuff. So this is something that we'll be addressing in the future, is maybe doing some of these huge canopies to where they have that shade that they need, which will help them, keep them out of the brush and out of the trees and out of our greenways and creeks and whatnot, if they have a proper shelter of some sort. So that's just another step. That's another discussion down the road of many discussions we're going to be having over this. It's not going to end here, I guarantee you that.
So Mayor, tonight was, I think, really about selecting an alternative site.
Correct.
And I think that I've gotten a pretty clear direction from the council of where that alternative site is. I think we've got some direction on a few other things as well. As you point out, there'll be a lot more work, but I think we've done what we need to right now.
So do we need to make a formal motion and vote on it? As he asked, or do we have to make a formal?
Do you want a motion or do you
Yeah,
have
motion.
enough to go on?
I have enough with consensus, as long as the city clerk, you have enough for consensus? Okay, I think as long as he can write it up, I can live with it. So,
Consensus of the council -1.
-1.
right, of the council
He
present.
actually gave his consensus earlier, but he didn't formally give his
He
consensus.
doesn't get to do that. Yes.
Right. Yeah, no proxy. So is there anything else?
No, then I guess that's it. And we'll go on to the number 2 item. And
Yes.
whoever wants to stay and listen to the number 2 item is great.
The number 1 that is now the
Number 1,
two,
that's now
yeah.
number 2, yeah.
It's really exciting stuff.
Uh-huh.
So, Mayor, members of the council,
Thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's talk.
and
Thank you.
Chief, I'll probably need to see you, Willow, and Matt right after the meeting, just very briefly. So the federal government has decided to send out money. We've talked about this a number of times. The total payment is about $1.8 million.
Our portion.
Our
right?
portion. So I believe the amount that's released in each payment is $899,000. As I mentioned the other night, the Department of Housing and Community Development is not in charge of sending out this money. The Department of Finance is. The Department of Finance is asking us to make our initial request for the funds by the 23rd of this month. And so we put this on. There was some discussion about whether to not put this on tonight's agenda so that we could simply talk about homeless. I want to make sure that everyone understands this has nothing to do with how the money is spent, has nothing to do with what projects are selected, has nothing to do
Thanks,
with,
guys.
Thanks, bye.
with any audit risk. This is simply to have a resolution in place to apply for the funds. This may not be necessary for the funds to actually flow, but we've noticed some other cities were doing it. We thought we'd just get ahead of the curve. If you don't want to adopt it tonight, that's fine. We'll adopt it. We'll bring it back to you on the 6th. And so I would say that if you have more discussion than about 2 minutes, you should table it.
I don't see any issue with it myself. I think.
I don't see
We're not turning down money.
No, I think.
No, I think we should move forward.
I think if we move forward.
Then with
We need a
that,
motion.
I would appreciate a motion
Okay,
so that we
I'll
can
make
get
it.
this paperwork done.
I would, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please, Joan.
I would like to make a motion, possible action. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving the submission of award terms and conditions and accepting allocation funds for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
Council Middleton, I will second the motion.
Hey, roll call, I guess.
Mayor Pro Tem Barry.
Aye.
City Council Member Freeman.
Aye.
City Council Member Middleton.
Aye.
Mayor Kay.
Aye.
McCoy absent.
Got it.
All ayes.
All right.
Go
That's all
forth
we
and
have
make
tonight.
money.
You go forward and accept money. Yes.
Yes.
All right, with
Right.
that in mind, meeting adjourned. Thank you.